no chime. Hello, everyone. Nanotoka Cuitláhuac, Juanotonquisque Rola Martinez, Nani Nahuatl. My name is Cuitláhuac, and my last name is Rola Martinez. I'm a Nahuatl language teacher from speakingnahuatl.com, as well as Tlaxlo Tapasoli, a Nahuatl study collective on Tongva land, or so-called Los Angeles. This is an introductory class to elementary Nahuatl level 1 for complete beginners. So let's first start by asking what's a language, right? So it's a form of communication between a group of people. It's oral, right? I'm talking. It's written. You can write down what I'm saying. There's grammar. I'm talking as opposed to I talked yesterday. Language is also uh, gestures, right, that you can use with your friends or with your family members. You can communicate the present, the past, the future, right? There's also American Sign Language, and the languages across the world. Now, in the colonial borders of the Mexican state, there are 68 languages, which are grouped into 11 language families. We'll get into what a language family is right now, but let's take a look at a map. Uh, it's more interactive here. So here are the languages spoken in the colonial borders of the Mexican state. And the pink is the Uto-Azteca, so Uto-Nahuatl language family. And the pink. So this is one of the language families in the colonial borders of the Mexican state. We can go beyond the colonial borders as well by going to native-land.ca. On this side, you can also find out whose traditional lands you are on by simply making sure that it says territories. You can type in a city, right? For example, Los Angeles, and it'll take you to the traditional lands of that area. Now, since we're focusing on languages, we're just going to click on languages and turn off territories. So if we zoom out, these are the languages spoken beyond the colonial borders. Dam is also part of the Uto-Aztecan language family. We go further up and up. Southern Paiute is part of the language family as well. Shoshone, Northern Paiute would be the two northernmost, Shoshone and Northern Paiute. So think of a language as a tree, right? So think of a language as a tree, as yourself, right? And then a language family is a forest, right? So think of your family members, each one as their own self, as a tree, right? So this language family has been called Uto-Aztecan language family, but others also call it the Uto-Nahuatl language family. Um, So some of those languages in that language family, right, are Shoshone, Tongva, Yaqui, Wirarika, Nahuatl, and Nahuatl. Right, so here we have the top Native American language families video by linguist Yan Garcia, one of our teachers from the collective of Tlaxlo Tapasoli, and also their friend who's also a linguist. Now, this is a video which talks about the major language families of North, Central, and South America. And I will be showing you the section of the Uto-Aztecan language family. So let me just make sure that I'm sharing the video so you can see it. One moment. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and play it.
Next on our list is Uto-Aztecan. So the Uto-Aztecan language family is one of the most widespread language families that we'll cover today. That it's covering a region from Oregon all the way down to Nicaragua. Now, the research suggests that they started as one group about 4 to 5,000 years ago, somewhere either in central California, Arizona, or some other place in the American Southwest. A split occurred, and one group went south, the other one stayed north. But I should mention that the groups didn't just suddenly split from each other, but more or less moved in terms of waves. So many of the languages that you've heard before come from this language family. For example, the Aztecs. The Aztecs spoke Nahuatl, hence the name Uto-Aztecan for this grouping. Um, Today, the Nahuatl language, that's still the most spoken language of the Uto-Aztecan languages. And from Mexico north, all the way north, it's the most widely spoken language of the Native American languages. Also in Mexico, we have language groups such as the Huichol and the Cora, who are pretty well known for their spirituality regarding the peyote ceremonies. The Raramuri, who are famous for being long-distance ultramarathon runners and recently have a new video game out. The Yaqui, who are famous for their uprisings against the Mexican government, and the Yaquis are a binational group. So there are Yaquis who live on the U.S. side of the border and on the Mexican side of the border. In the U.S., of course, we also have Uto-Aztecan languages as well too. Hopi, Shoshone, Paiute. Um, these languages are all Uto-Aztecan. Many of the languages in Southern California, from Los Angeles to San Bernardino, are also languages of the Uto-Aztecan stock as well. Some of the characteristics of Uto-Aztecan languages is that they're very agglutinative. So basically, we're seeing that they also put a lot of grammatical information into just one word. So one verb can be very long. Like, for example, Nimitzon Tlaxcal Chihuilia, I make tortillas for you, but that's just one word.
It's the same as polysynthetic, right? Agglutinative.
It's similar, but languages like we covered Eskimo, like the Eskimo Aleut languages, are much more on that spectrum. They're much more further up ahead on that spectrum, whereas now it's a little bit less. So it's given the term agglutinative, but they're very similar kind of characteristics. Languages like Nahuatl or Aztec gave us many words into English, a ton, including atlat or arolaro, avocado, axolotl or axolotl, cacao, chia, chiclets, chili, chipotle, chocolate, tamal, tomato, and countless words, hundreds of words, if not thousands, that have also entered Mexican Spanish.
So that is a small breakdown of the language
Next on
family.
our list.
So again, what's a language family? So a language family is a grouping of linguistically linked languages stemming from a hypothesized common ancestral mother language called a proto-language, right? Proto meaning first. For this language family, it is Proto-Uto-Aztecan. But what about English, right? So we're familiar with English. English is part of the Indo-European language family. The Indo-European language family is in Eurasia, parts of Europe, and also parts of Asia. Some of those languages here are listed, right? Spanish, English, Hindi, Portuguese, Persian, Urdu, Russian, Armenian, French, German, Marathi, right? And those are just some of those languages. So there are languages that are called isolates. So most languages across the world belong to a specific family. But there are languages that are not classified within a specific family, and they are known as language isolates. In the colonial state of Mexico, Purepecha is an isolate. So this is the extent of the Purepecha language, mostly in the states of Michoacan, right? Parts of Jalisco, parts of Zacatecas, right? In other states here too, right? So this language is not related to any other language around it. So it's not part of any language family. However, there are theories that it is related to the Quechuan languages, right? This language family is in South America, what's now known as South America or Southern Abya-Yala. Abya-Yala is a term that is an alternative term to North, Central, and South America. So in South America, the Quechuan languages, this is where they are spoken, right? In parts of Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, also parts of Argentina. So when did Proto-Uto-Aztecan language originate? Some say 3,000 years ago, and other sources say it started 5,000 years ago. So anywhere between 3 to 5,000 years ago. As far as where it originated, some sources indicate central Mexico, while others say it's started in southwestern US. Here's more maps of the language family. Here's another one with some of those languages in there. Right, we have Shoshone, Paiute, Tongva, Hopi. Right, bottom one is Nahuatl. Right, so the word pipil is not used that much anymore. Right, yeah, Nahuatl is also a part of the Uto-Aztecan language family. Right, Shoshone and Paiute, the northernmost, northern Tepehuan somewhere in the middle, and Nahuatl Pipil, the southernmost. Here are more maps, right, in southern central California, or so-called California. We have Tuvatulaval here, we have Tataviam, right? We have Odam, Comanche, we have Ute. We go further down, we have Odam, Yaqui, and Mayo. We have Tarahumara, Tepehuan, Cora, Huichol, Wirarica would be the name. These they are all mostly colonial terms. So Cora would be the actual term for the language would be Nayeri. Huichol, the actual term would be Wirarica. Right, we're seeing Nahuatl is at the bottom here. Nahuatl in El Salvador, and then we have the Nahuan or dialects, right? The Nahuatl dialects in red. So there are over 30 languages in this family. If variants of Nahuatl are included, there are 61, and we'll get into those numbers right now. So again, these languages are spoken in what is now the Western US and Mexico. Northernmost languages are Shoshone and Paiute. And they are spoken in parts of Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, and Idaho. Southernmost is Nahuatl Pipil. So, as Tlamachtiket Jan explained, right, these languages are polysynthetic. So this means that there are many or multiple particles that you stack together to make one word. Now, they are agglutinative because these particles are added together, right, to form words. These words can be long and function as a whole sentence in languages such as English. For example, we have here she with can. You are requesting a group of people to do something. Mo is reflexive, something that you do to yourself. Kama is mouth from kamak or kamat. Sakwa is close, right? So shimo kama takwaka means you all close your mouths. Like so, if you want people to stop speaking, this is what you would say. Shimo kama takwaka. Right here we have the classical orthography and the new orthography. We'll also get into that as well. Here are some comparisons of the sounds from Hopi, Comanche, Ute, Mano, Liseño, Nahuatl, Mayo, Huichol, Tarahumara, right? The words that are being compared are on the left: one, two, three, four, five, man, woman, sun, and moon, and water, right? The word one, there's an S going across, Nahuatl se. Two, there's a W sound in Nahuatl ome. Three, we have a P sound in Nahuatl eyi or yeyi or yay, depending on the dialect. We have four, right? There's an N, there's also a W, Nahuatl nawi. Five, right? We have an M sound going across, maquil or maquili in Nahuatl. Man, there's a T sound, right? In Nahuatl tlacat. Woman, there's a W here, and this one is different, right? There's an S sound here. Nahuatl is also an S sound. Siwat. Sun, there's a T sound going across. Moon, we have M, right? And then Nahuatl metzli. Water, there's a P sound here, and Nahuatl is at, right? So here's more basic vocabulary items in 8 Uto-Aztecan languages, right? So Ute, Tuvatulaval, Luiseño, Hopi, Todam, Tarahumara, Cora, and Nahuatl, right? These have some linguistic uh, symbols, right, from the IPA, right? So we have At, Tlan, Wak, Yaka, Naka, Cuitla, Te, Eti, Mek, O, Omi, Ome, Ista, Sisiwal, I'm sorry, Chichiwal, and to urinate is Shisha, Cuitlatl, Istiyol, and Miki. Right, you see there some of the sounds are similar if you go across. Right, these words here with tooth, you have Tawa, Newt, there's a T going across. Tlan from Tlancoch and Nahuatl, dry, right? Here, nose has a similar M sound here, ear, N across most of these, right? Nakastli, Nahuatl, tail, looks like it's different, similar with Cora or Nayeri, stone, it looks like there's a T here, dead and Nahuatl, heavy, right? Looks like there's different sounds. Moon is looks like it's the M across, right? Metzli and Nahuatl, road, bone, right? Road, there's a P going across. Bone, right? me, I was on mute. So we have bone. There's an O going across here, except for here with Liseño. Now it's omit. Two, there's a W sound, right? Now it's ome. Salt. Different sounds here. We have istat. Now it's breast. P sound. Right? And now it's chichiwali. Urinate. Right, there's a S or a sh sound. Shisha and Nahuatl feces. A qu sound. Quitlatl Nahuatl I. There's a P sound here. Istiyol and Nahuatl die. M going across. Nahuatl Mickey. Here's the language list if you'd like to go to check it out. Uto-Aztecan language family list. They can also, language families can also be, they can also be divided into groups, right? So we have the Numic group, the Western, the Southern, the Central, the Takik group, the Southern, Uto-Aztecan or Nahuatl, Uto-Nahuan, right? So this is a list that you can go to. Here we have a linguist, Josh, and this is his name and his language. Right, and he shares a lot of videos from his language, Northern Paiute. So I recommend you go to their page, right? TikTok Paiute. Right, and here, I just want to make sure you can hear the video, or you were not seeing me on video. Let me share the video. Now, this video will show most of the languages, so sounds of people speaking in their native languages, right, from this same language family. So let me share that.
In Comanche language, this is what you'll say. Maratweka, Nananiatsa Martin Flores. Na said numana, na not numana, wigakwi. Zana natsuka, tzika tavin.
But nanani hat on it. Neza I got the cut. Neza the veal white. I got ba. I got ba.
Sima wada bada nuna watui managi navai nuna datsui na watui simura wami hat simura nuana.
Mauk epach nini kanipuni ticket. You made the boy show me the house. Umig mga epachi nini kanipuni ticket. Umig mga epachi nini kanipuni ticket.
Kawaninum Tereka asunamaga Papa kay panupitikin ne Papas tumakanenum Kutaparuk tumanesu kamanek tumanen Papas mga sikwensunamaga Makabitikan hidonum
Viante wana margazi ipumaya manikewa Tiwi Pachu, Tiniaban and Shu Amurdu. Okay.
Can you tell me what you said?
Huh?
Can you translate in English?
Oh, he said, thank you for coming.
Purdue Veronica, I miss Naniana.
Napahayu, Tawit Sogo.
Samotu, Wahayu, Pahiyu, Watsakwayu, Manigi.
Pijawama means good morning.
Ben enanka mechanak pish ne chengen pe. Ben enanka mechanak pish ne ivilio wap.
And that means what?
To speak Korea.
Ichapchuma Kurtz Bernards Ovid. Ovid Tich Bernards. Okay. Apjana Hutsk. Batun Inich Apjana.
Pai hupit tuiat hinita tuat nemi yang pa pampiasi hintak pa benehi sak pi tuat nanani.
We give thanks for the hands that have taken care of it in the past years.
We had
And to the peoples that helped us to get it back.
The Anghanil Awinzang homobit.
Newa de Mexcotlali. Que maná ni pilquense o ni pisilce, ni estudia o no mastle, nepa ese lugar se tlaltipa. Toca chote, campana no mastle, ni uyaya pampa tlewanta mastleone.
Tesu metzpaleuia ne munansi, tashawa.
Nah, tenikneki.
Ah, testikne.
Ya wetikne tunal.
Ah, paltes mutimaga.
Nah, nita susta.
Ah, que yek.
El campo pale caca te palsivat.
Teme pupiripi pueblo pochcame kiyami sin llame nahuesari.
O papa chani puruna ena tetena ika ikachi.
Guayolem nocta betana temi en Chimewa. Este jovale. Guavanata que tom yo guam. Guame ito guato herencia coco la cata.
No, rame gnaden baer capriga o mawa bonan pachito wa bora guru si chico porra gral kere.
Ya ves a we daron sa mi to o mawa mu krunare. Pachi wero.
La riga broco.
Hapchimin tomala que venden chimune entonces chim tengo que si importante que me el chimusim me yo tume
en que optan como eléctrica muy media que ya está no cuaja de como cable y ha cable por tanto carmo se ve que yo pero en vos vi que ya está no ya que vos se va como dos con chichi es que dos con chichi es que ya paga vos como ya está no ya en vos vi que
Ubuchu na chuto buana, buchu tu kun hash hungwaya nang paitio.
Kaach tam chiti him chutek wa opaki huwit ama wa pa u ktuak. Po ischur chik wa opak konatok chuwak. Tak chuwak huwit pio ipuk. Afko am chitomut chama pohi ke. Mata mo cười cái chuột hoa cái chuột tam ấy
ni paja muere ita Uto-Aztecan Dios tallao ta utata ta usuka
Naimi itu yanki ishashana yeri panyu kari. Sei kumentu na po mu yanki isehre México.
Mugre que povi pena mate ne kai mu en kiriya me akoto ni tapana mu soko ser mu te komana ya kata etana mu tema esan mu heye mana yo ya mu yan te mi tin tas tipia
So we move along. Here we have a map of the extent of where Nahuatl was historically spoken and is still spoken. So who spoke Nahuatl? Right, so the most popular indigenous group to have spoken Nahuatl are the Aztecs. They didn't call themselves the Aztecs, they called themselves Mexica. It was used as a lingua franca or common language for indigenous groups across Mesoamerica to communicate for trade. Mesoamerica, well, is roughly most of Mexico and also parts of Central America, or so-called Central America, so-called Mexico. Meso comes from Middle Greek. That's in Greek. That's what it means, middle. So it was used to communicate, for trade, for politics, for exchanging information. But it wasn't just them that spoke Nahuatl. It wasn't just the Mexica. Other groups also spoke Nahuatl, the Kashkan, the Coash, Tlaxcaltec, among others. Right, so here we have the extent of Nahuatl lingua franca before 1521, the so-called fall of Mexico Tenochtitlan. Right, in the yellow, right, you see it extends far beyond the colonial borders of these states in Central America. 1521, orange, in the orange we have the Nahua populations. And then in the red we have the current Nahua populations. So Nahua is in Nahuatl speaking. Nahua is a person that speaks Nahuatl, right? So we have them in red. Here in the red in Salvador is Nahuatl, or Nahuatl Pipil, but again, Pipil is not a term that's being used so much. So Nahuatl is considered its own language, right? But I also see it being part of the Nahuatl dialects because I'm able to understand it. Now, one thing to notice, to stick with one dialect, to learn one dialect. And as you go along, you'll be able to understand the rest of the dialects. Now, where is Nahuatl spoken? Now, there's no certain area where you can say, oh, okay, here's where they speak Nahuatl, right? So there's different parts of what you can say, maybe islands in Mexico within the land, right? So here's a map, right? Spoken in Nayarit. Here are some of the states, right? Estado de Mexico, Puebla, Guerrero, Hidalgo, Veracruz, Oaxaca, Durango, Morelos, Tlaxcala, Jalisco, San Luis Potosí, Michoacán, Nayarit, also the state of Nuevo León. Now, it's spoken traditionally, it's spoken in these areas, but also in other areas due to migration, right? So who speaks Nahuatl today? Modern Nahuatls, or people that speak Nahuatl, right? They can be divided into different regions. Here are about 7, right? Nahuas del Alto Balsas in Guerrero. Nahuas de la Sierra Norte de Puebla, in the state of Puebla. Nahuas de la Huasteca, which are parts of the states of San Luis Potosí, Veracruz, and Hidalgo. We'll get into that one. That's the dialect that we learn and teach. Nahuas de Texcoco in the Estado de Mexico. We have Nahuas de Milpa Alta in Mexico City, Nahuas de la Montaña, also in Guerrero, and Nahuas de la Costa Sierra de Michoacán. Now, Nahuatl is a term for these dialects, right, that are, so basically a dialect or a variant. So a dialect is a variant, a variety of a language, right? So these are the different varieties of languages, right? So we'll get into how many there are. Now, each group uh, calls their dialect of Nahuatl differently. Some maybe just say Nahuatl, others say Nahuatl, which is literally Nahuatl language. Others Masewal from Masewali or Masewal indigenous person. Others call it Mexicatlahtoli. Others Mexcatl, Mexicano, lengua mexicana, or others just simply Totlahtol, our language. Now, how many people speak Nahuatl? Now, in the Mexican census in 2010, there was over 1.5 million speakers. In 2020, there was over 1.6 million speakers. Right? So it's the second most spoken language in Mexico besides the colonial language of Spanish. Now here's a figure, something to think about, something to look into, and it's also something that you within your family lineage can question as well, right? So in 1820, 70% of the population spoke in an indigenous language in Mexico, within the colonial borders of Mexico. Some linguists say perhaps up to 80 or more percent. So that's something to think about, right? As we are learning our original languages. Now, depending on, linguists, language learners, some define what a language is, the difference between a language and a dialect. So there's different opinions, different studies. So if you look into how many variants or how many dialects of Nahuatl, it just depends who divides them, who groups them. This is the Mexican government, the INALI. The INALI is the Institución Nacional de Lenguas Indígenas. And that's the Mexican government's authority they have some sort of authority on indigenous language and indigenous language instruction. Um, they say that there's 30 variants. Other sources is anywhere between 21 to 31 modern variants. Um, so here we have Nahuatl de la Sierra Norte de Puebla, we have Nahuatl Noroeste Central, we have Nahuatl de la Huasteca Potosina, right? And even if you go into this list, right, you can know, right, we have Variante Nahuatl de la Sierra Norte de Puebla, autodenominación, right, what they call themselves, what they call the language that they speak, right, Mexicano Tlachtol, Mexicatl, Mexicano. Right. Now, you can also click on the variant and it'll give you the towns in which this section of this dialect is, right? So all of these towns belong to this variant right here. Right, so we have Nahuatl La Huasteca Potosina. You can click here and the towns involved there, right? So one thing to note, so because there's such a lot of, because there's a lot of variety within this language, there's many ways of saying things. For example, we're familiar with English, right? Once again, so English, right? The variants of English are American English, um, British English, Australian English, right? So those are the variants of that language. But there's also variations, right? So we have American English and we have Western American English, maybe also Southern California English, right? Someone that speaks, that's from Southern California, or so-called Southern California, speaks differently than someone from Wisconsin, right? And that's the way that it is here as well. But there's even more diversity uh, in this language because of there's so many variants, right? Anywhere from 27 to 31. Most sources that say that there's 30. This is the Huasteca region. This is Nahuatl Huasteca. This is where it's spoken. Um, this variant alone, Nahuatl Huasteca, Potosina, which means the state of San Luis Potosí, Nahuatl Huasteca Hidalguense, Nahuatl Huasteca Veracruzana. So this is the most spoken dialect of Nahuatl because there's 1 million speakers of this dialect alone. Now, why do we learn and teach this variant? Well, our teachers are from this area, specifically Chicontepec, right? Chicontepec. SpeakNawa.com, our collective, has also made connections with Temachtiani David Tladwanitsin, and he is from Tamazunchale, right, in this region right here. So we're familiar with all of these towns right here, right, in regards to the dialect of Nahuatl that they speak. So Chicontepec, Veracruz is a Nahuatl that we learn and teach mostly, as well as Tamazunchale Nahuatl. So what does Chicontepec mean, right? Chicontepec, right? From Chicome, 7, Tepetl, hill or mountain. Ko or k at the end is inside of, so inside of the 7 hills. Viewers from this town, you will see 7 hills. The largest one is considered very sacred, and we have the corn and fertility deity called Chikomeshochitl. Now, this is a very sacred deity that represents corn, right? So the cultivation and veneration of corn is central to all Mesoamerican cultures, even till today, even for folks that live in the city, right? So what do we still eat? Tacos, tlaxcali or tortillas, right? Tamales, pupusas, right? Nacatamales. Now here's a video of a ceremony for Chikomeshochitl, right? So you will see some soda, atzopelatl, atl, water. You will see scissors of paper, right? A petlatl, a petate, a mat. You will see a popochcomitl, a copalero, and a cantela. You will see a candle. Now this paper and these scissors, the tlacatl here is cutting the paper into the shape of Chikomeshochitl. Okay, so we will go ahead and watch it. Let me make sure that I'm sharing video so we can watch it. One moment. Okay, perfect.
También pasteras.
Yanni.
Hiya. Un ratito lo vamos a explicar para luego poner las camisitas. Explicar unos cuantos. Y decir en el agua.
네. 많이 선택한 거.
Ay, ay, ay.
Lo que más pones es parte aquí.
Está esperando tu Carlos y mi tío y el pequeño. Estaba diciendo.
Ya te íbamos a multar, gordo.
La otra vez que tu padrino se lastimó la pierna lo fuiste a dejar, ¿ah?
Ah, no lo he visto.
Sí lo fuiste a dejar.
No me acuerdo.
Sí.
No pushen. Gracias. ¿Te van a meter otro?
Le estaba gritando a mi mamá, ¿verdad?
Te mandé a comprar hilo. No.
Right, and then we will pause here for the time being, and we will continue with the next video. Timoitase, we'll see each other.